Bonjour everyone, I am Anne-Lise Cailliez and welcome to Parlez-vous CEO, where we ditch the corporate talk and get real about entrepreneurship. Each week, I chat with founders and CEOs who build businesses their way, through the failures, pivots, and breakthroughs. And they bring the fire. Plus, I'll drop some golden nuggets of wisdom from my own entrepreneurial journey. This is your space to grow, learn, and evolve with a true growth mindset. Remember, success isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Now let's kick things off and get this party started. Bonjour, hello. Welcome to another episode of Parlez-vous CEO. My name is Anne-Lise Cailliez and I am your host. For those who are just joining the podcast, we are Brandora and we specialize in helping real estate companies scale their revenue. If you want to learn how to take your business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in the free growth consultation, just drop the word growth in the DMs. So today we have a very exciting guest. I am with Sandy Ferrera. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, how are you?
It's such a pleasure to have you today, and I'm excited to dive into your story. In your own words, please let our audience know a little bit more about your story and your background and how you came to doing real estate.
So I started back in 1987 doing what I call traditional real estate. Which most people understand are listings and sales. And 1990, we joke around, I crossed over to the dark side and focused on long-term residential housing property management. And so for the last 35 years, we've just celebrated our 35th anniversary.
Wow, congrats.
That's what we've been doing. So we've been helping people rent and manage their homes.
Wow, that's fantastic. 35 years. That's a good milestone birthday.
It does date me a little bit, but you can't hide the facts.
Could you tell us a bit more about how you came to do property management and how you transition from what you call traditional real estate to the dark side?
So I started my career with Century 21 and got a lot of training. I was extremely successful. I was pretty young and I had one son at the time. So I realized that there were a lot of weekends and evenings and it took me away from my children. I subsequently had another one. I have a total of 4 children now. And I was an investor myself. I bought real estate. I started with one house. And I realized that there was a real need out there for people to manage these assets, houses, for individuals like me who maybe have 1 or 2 houses. And it just snowballed over the years. But the big driving force was my family.
Wow, I love that. So how was it to transition to work with a big team, I imagine, to transition into working for yourself?
It was not easy. It was not easy at all. It took a lot of guts. It took a lot of fortitude. It's one of those things, but I never stopped believing that I would reach the end goal. And I think that I am extremely passionate about the industry. I love the industry, both sides. And, but for me, I knew that this was the path I wanted to be on. And so I didn't take my foot off the gas. Kept pushing forward.
How were you so sure? And how old were you when it flipped, when you decided or you knew this is what I want to be doing?
I was 20 years old.
So you knew very early.
Yes. And back then, okay, you're young, beautiful. Back then, we didn't have things like the internet. We didn't have podcasts. Your marketing was a lot of grassroots marketing where you were knocking on doors or visiting real estate offices so that you could tell them about your services. The yellow pages, now we have Google, that's our yellow pages. So it was very different back then, but I knew, and I can remember the first property I picked up. I can remember the first 5. I can even remember when I ran out of room in the file box where I kept the file folders. That was an exciting moment because I knew I was getting to where I needed to go. And of course, over the 35 years, life has changed dramatically in the business world and has changed for us.
And so tell us a bit more about your first client.
So the very first person that I ever picked up off a mail out. And I don't remember specifically my first client, but the very first person I picked up on a mail out, I had her in our original portfolio for 32 years.
Wow.
And when she finally gave notice that she was going to sell the house and no longer manage it, I picked up the phone and I called her. And I was devastated to lose this because she was the very first one. It was a great story. And unfortunately, she was having some medical issues and needed to have some procedures done that were not covered by insurance. So I couldn't overcome that, even though I offered to manage her house for free for like ever. I couldn't overcome that because she really needed the cash to have these procedures. But so it's over the years, we've had some crazy stories, as you can imagine. And, you know, we do the same thing every 30 days because we cycle every month. But every day is different. You just don't know what you're going to encounter from one day to the next. And I can remember on my very first eviction, we went out there and I didn't know any better, but you don't ever open the refrigerator and you don't ever open the freezer. You let other people do that. So I opened up the refrigerator and it stunk because there was rotting food in there, but I opened up the freezer and there was a snake inside the freezer.
Oh my God.
I learned really quickly that
you don't do that.
You don't open the refrigerator or the freezer when doing an eviction.
I didn't know that. So tell us more about your current business and what is it that you do exactly and who do you serve?
So in 2008, we franchised the all-county property management company. And so we put individuals into the business of property management. And we've made it a lot easier than it was 35 years ago. And we've basically give them a business in a box with training and support, and they all have my phone number. So we are now in, I think, 22 states across the
Wow.
And we have an incredible group of what I call my business family, my all county family. And so it's really grown and it's been an incredible experience.
That's amazing to hear. And I love, so it's really because you wish when you started that you had somebody like you who was mentoring you like that you started this company?
Well, yes, I can remember when my husband joined the original property management company, All County Suncoast. And it was 2000. And I was so excited because my gross revenues were like $22,000 a month. When we franchised, one of our early franchisees, I think he was number 4, in a year and a half passed what I had done in what took me 11 years. And it was bittersweet. It was bitter because I'm a competitive person. And I thought, wow, what was so sweet about it was that the information and the tools and the mentoring and coaching and support that we gave him the ability to do that. And our franchisees, the sky has really been the limit. And it's incredible to watch their journeys. So at that moment, it was like, wow, if I had only known now, back then, how successful, and I consider myself to be pretty successful, but how successful could I have been? I mean, it's crazy when you think about it.
I understand the bittersweetness. But at the same time, it's such a success story. After only 1 year and a half, that the student is, how do you say that, superseding the master?
Yes. And that's what you want them to do. But yes, very competitive. And then we've watched our franchisees, and they're a great bunch. They really are come from all different backgrounds. And they help one another, but they're all very competitive. And on our franchise success system, we have a leaderboard. They can see where they rank against their peers every month, and they get really competitive, and they'll send each other messages and talk a little smack, but it's all in good fun.
Yeah, I'm very much pro a little emulation like that. I think that's very motivating. Do they ever win prize when one wins?
So we do an annual conference and we do give out awards and we give out
Nice.
all kinds of different awards. Of course, the top grossing office, but we give Shining Star Awards and Rookie of the Year and Most Innovative. And when we get together, we learn a lot. We have a couple of days of nothing but sessions. This is when we usually roll out the new products or implement new procedures, but we always have a great time. We have a lot of fun. And so, yes, there's a lot of camaraderie when we face things like hurricanes or fires or freezing. The franchisees on the other coast that's not in the path of Mother Nature actually step in and run the offices and the phones for the franchisees that are affected by these natural disasters. And that's a very unique thing in a business like ours, to find that close-knit camaraderie. And I mean, not every franchisee obviously is like that. We have different people, but the majority of them, if an individual called, say, from Texas to Colorado and said, I really need your help, will you hop on a plane? Most of our franchisees would hop on a plane.
Wow, I love hearing that support system, I mean, especially in the real estate world where it's extremely competitive, but to see that they will still be there for each other when shit hit the fan, pardon my French. I love hearing that. And so with your business model and franchisees that you're working with, one, how do you attract them? And two, how do you select them? Because I'm sure you're receiving, I don't know if it's called applications, but people who want to work with you, and maybe you're like, I'm not so sure about you.
So it is a process. And I mean, we have folks that were teachers, corporate America. We have a rocket scientist, a number of engineers. The biggest thing is when they go through a process, what we call recruitment, and when they finally decide that they really think they're getting close, that this might be what they want to do, then they come in and they meet with my husband and I, and we sit down, we have dinner together, we spend 2 days together. And what we're really looking for is if that person is going to be able to follow a system and that we connect. Because there are times in business where you have to have those hard conversations, and we've got to have that rapport on the front end, because if you don't have that relationship, it's hard to get them to the next level. So we're looking for individuals that share the passion. We're very passionate. We have a lot of great competitors, but we believe we're the best in the industry. So that share the passion, but also share the philosophy of who and what we are. This is not just business. Yes, we're all here to make money. That's important. But also, we really talk about quality of life, family and friends, giving back. It's so they don't have to share the same political beliefs. They don't have to share the same religious beliefs. But in business, we've got to be able to sit around a table and all agree together and take it to the next level.
That makes a lot of sense. You're saying passion, being coachable, and sharing the same values, so that it's really a culture fit.
Yes.
Is how you're selecting them. Yeah, I like that a lot. You've been in this business for a long time. And what are the best and worst marketing activities that you've done?
So marketing is a dirty word for any business.
I am a marketer.
Marketing. I hate marketing. What is marketing? My yard signs marketing. And the thing about it is that most businesses fail in the first 5 years. That is not any different for franchises. And the reason why they fail, many people will say it's a lack of capital. No, it's a lack of marketing, because what you have to do, and in our business, we build relationships. We build relationships with our owners, with our vendors, with our real estate partners. And a lot of the marketing that most people really don't like is the grassroots marketing, where you put yourself out in front of people and talk to people. And so I'll never forget one of my first meetings. I was up speaking and I was young and I was nervous and I lost complete track of what I was talking about. And I just basically shut down for a minute. And somebody in the audience threw me a bone and asked me a question. And then I was able to kind of
Go back.
and run with it. So somebody threw me a lifeline, which I'm so thankful for. But the marketing in any business, I don't care if it's real estate, if it's electronics, you have to market. And we have a pretty good marketing plan. There's quite a few branches to the tree. It's not just one trunk. Those franchisees that are the most successful do almost all the branches. Those that are not as successful choose what they're comfortable with.
Interesting. What are the things that the people are the least comfortable with exactly?
It's the grassroots marketing. It's the cold calling.
It's the cold calling.
Cold calling or walking into a real estate office, because we don't do listing and sales. We only do long-term residential property management. So we build relationships with those real estate professionals that don't do property management. It's a great partnership. But they don't know you exist if you don't go out and talk to them. And so that's really the hardest part. I mean, is building those relationships.
And what would you say if you had a magic wand to solve your biggest pain point, your biggest business challenge? What would it be? Would you say it's marketing?
So it's so funny because I have franchisees that I can call when I need to get boosted up. If I had a magic wand, the one thing that I wish I could swirl around and fix is when the franchisee says to me, that won't work. And you have to have that tough conversation and say, yes, it does work. We've done it over and over and over again, and we know it works. You just have to do it in order for it to work. That's the hardest thing. And it could be the grassroots marketing. It could be mail outs. It could be digital marketing, whatever. They pick what they feel they don't like, and they just don't do it because they think it's not going to work and they don't want to do it. But then I'll call a franchisee that I know is very successful in that arena, and I'll say, I just need you to tell me, do you still do this? And they laugh and they'll tell me, yes, because you told us to do it, and it works.
That's interesting. So you're basically saying that you have some franchisees who are from the get-go saying, without trying, saying, no, this will not work.
It's tough. And we try to have those conversations on the front end before they ever get in. But fear is a wonderful motivating factor. Fear is what drove me to make sure that this business was successful, because I didn't have an alternative. I had children to feed and overhead. But fear can also be paralyzing. So it's our job, my team's job, my job, my husband's job, to get them past that fear. And so we actually physically go and work with them through the different things, whether it's closing a lead or speaking in front of a group, or if it's getting that credit card out to pay for it, or whatever it is, we help them overcome that.
And this ties back to what you were saying in the beginning when you're selecting who to work with, is being coachable. So people will understand that this is a proven system. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just stick to what we're doing, and do the reps, and it's going to work out. But it's mindset, right? It's mindset to trust the process.
And it's fun when you first start. You're getting an office space and you're furnishing it, and you're going through this training, and then all of a sudden everything's in place. And now you got to work. And for us, I always tell people it's a job. Most of the time it's FUN, but sometimes it's a job. And we have to do it so we can get to the FUN. And it just depends on the individual. Some are go-getters and have no problem, and other ones you have to push.
And so in your line of business, are you seeing more and more female franchisee coming up to work with you?
I wish I had more female franchisees. I do have some. What's very interesting is I only have a handful of female solely operated. What happens is they get to a successful point, and then their husbands quit their job and join them, which is a success story, because a lot of them will do that. But being, obviously female, I'd like to see more females in the industry. And it's still a little male dominated.
Okay. I was hoping you would tell me, yes, I'm seeing more and more female who are getting into property management.
Well, the husbands jump on, and
Uh-huh.
then it's no longer solely female owned and operated, but that's okay. As long as
So
they're
it sounds like you have really very different profiles of people going into the business. What would you say is the thing that they have in common, though? What is it? What is the quality that you pick up within them, or that little light, or what is the thing that they all have in common?
so if I'm looking for the perfect franchisee,
Mm-hmm.
I want someone who wants to be able to spend time with their family and their friends. I want somebody who has just enough money to do this,
Mm-hmm.
but not a lot to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to follow a system.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have those three qualities, you have I know it sounds crazy, but you have a much greater chance of success. Those folks that have a lot more cushion in the bank don't have the need and don't always. Now, this is not 100% true. One of our top franchisees is not the norm. But if they have too much cushion, they don't have the same drive.
A little too comfortable. Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so, we're looking for that individual that wants the lifestyle, that wants to leave a legacy, that wants these things, because the attractive part of this business is that it's a residual income.
Mm-hmm.
So we have long-term clients that have been with us for, well, I told you I just lost one after 32 years.
Mm-hmm.
So long term. And I mean, one of my large clients has been with me since 1994.
Oh.
So that residual income is a blessing. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
loves it. It's also a curse, because when you get to a certain plateau, the motivation goes away to go out and double your gross revenues.
That's interesting. And so when you're speaking about lifestyle and people looking for a certain lifestyle, are people joining you working part-time on this or full-time in general?
We require them to be full time.
Okay.
We want them to be committed. This isn't, you take an individual's most valuable asset, which is their house. In most
Mm-hmm.
cases, it exceeds their 401k or their stocks and bonds.
Mm-hmm.
So we want somebody who's committed.
Mm-hmm.
And, we manage high volume.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always call it a property management ballet.
Mm-hmm.
We have all these balls up in the air, and
Mm-hmm.
the goal is to never drop one.
I like that analogy. At first I heard valet and then understood it's ballet, right? What's your most favorite thing about property management or real estate?
So I love real estate. I
Mm-hmm.
think that there's a great opportunity to grow wealth long term, both from the investment sides as well as from the business side on the management. In fact, I wrote a book about growing wealth long term in
What's
real
the name
estate.
of the book?
Growing wealth long term in real estate, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the name of it. It's a couple years. It's on Amazon. The idea is that it gives you the flexibility that you're not going to get from a 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you put your money in CDs, there are different things. So I'm a huge proponent of owning real estate
Mm-hmm.
long term for an investment, which aligns with what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I get very excited when we talk about investment properties and real estate. And after 39 years, I think it was 39 years
Mm-hmm.
when I got my first real estate license.
Wow. 39 years. That's amazing. Such a great story. And so, who are you looking up to, either in the industry or life in general? Is there an influencer or role model, a leader that you look up to?
So in the early days, it was my grandmother who went through the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
She was always my inspiration. She was always my driving
Wow.
force. She supported me, in fact, paid for me to take my real estate class.
Oh, wow.
As we grew, we were very fortunate, especially in the franchise world, to surround ourselves with people that knew more than we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I always find how people make money fascinating. So I'm always asking questions, and I'm always looking to learn. And so in the early days, we surrounded ourselves with some very, very knowledgeable people in franchising in general. And that helped us create the culture that we have now with our franchisees. Our growth strategy is very different from most franchise organizations, but those people, and there's quite a few, so I don't have one individual that I can say is like the person that I look up to the most. But these individuals gave us a lot of good information and good intel, and I try to learn from everybody. Look at those people that are more successful than me, and I want to know how they did it. Well, I'll ask questions. You know, I don't want to be rude, but I want to know, you know, what's that driving force? And for us, in the early days, if you had asked me what my goals were, I wanted to be on Fortune magazine, and I have 500 units, 500 franchise locations. And the third franchisee that we signed on, back then we had copy machines. We were copying the franchise agreement. He looked at us and he said to my husband and I, "Can really do this for this amount of money?" We looked at each other. He said, "Yes, you can." And then after he left and went home, we looked at each other again and we said, "Can we really do this?" We realized at that moment in time that the individuals that we were working with were more important than the number of locations. And so our growth philosophy is very different from most. And we focus on our fellow franchisees, and they all have my cell phone number. They all have my husband's cell phone number. They're all extremely respectful, but they know all they have to do is text. If I'm on a plane, as soon as I land, I'll call them. And it was the early days, the folks in franchising that said, you know, you can create a culture. And so that's what we've done. And had we gone the other route and tried to award as many franchise locations as we could, I don't think we could have trained or supported them and had them be as happy and successful as they are now. So we're a little unique.
I love hearing that. So you're really leading by example, and no wonder you have such a strong company culture where your franchisee are helping each other out because they see you being exactly that person, that support system for them. So that I'm not surprised that the way they treat each other is how they've been treated by you. And that's really phenomenal that you've been able to build that.
Yes, this weekend we're getting on a plane, flying to Texas with a lot of my team members from the home office, and a lot of franchisees, because one of our franchisees' daughter is getting married. And so there'll be about 25 of us that are from All County to attend this wedding for her
That's lovely. Yeah.
24-year-old daughter.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, that's also a community building. It's really beyond business, you know, the relationships that you build.
It's a business family, but we genuinely care about the industry and we care about each other.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear, really refreshing. And so I heard you earlier saying the franchisee are very respectful. And to tie back to this, real estate, and I'm sure even more so property management, is a 27 type of industry. How are you able to manage this work-life harmony? I say harmony instead of balance because I think it's more correct than balance.
So we leverage technology pretty heavily. So that makes it a lot easier than it was 35 years ago. But it's a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 job most of the time. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody's water main doesn't break or the stove catches fire or the air conditioning doesn't work. But for us, that's a telephone call and that's coordinating somebody to take care of that. So I don't look at that as being open or away because I could be at a party and walk away for 5 minutes and resolve that issue and then come back to the party. And we all rotate. Every office rotates their on-call so that not one person is stuck with the on-call all month long. We rotate it depending on the number of employees. And again, even our customers, okay, our residents, some people call them tenants. I like to call them residents. They're also respectful. I mean, they know if it's not an emergency that we'll get somebody out there Monday morning. If it's an emergency, then they're going to call that emergency hotline. Using the technology makes it very easy because we get an immediate message that we've had a emergency and what the emergency is and what property it's at. And then we can take appropriate action. So it only takes you a couple of minutes.
And speaking of technology, have your team transitioned to any type of AI?
So the software that we use, and we do a lot of programming. We have an all-county franchise success system that does a lot of the heavy lifting for them, that checks balance sheets and things like that. So we are using AI in a lot of those components. We do almost all of our day-to-day activities using technology. What we pride ourselves on with our residents is we really are striving to give the customer service so that when we it all goes hand in hand. So we like to offer that. So we teach our team members to pick up the phone, have a conversation. This is not the time when somebody's having a problem. The last thing you want to do is send them out an automated message. You want to actually pick up the phone and let them know you're dealing with it. So we do use AI in a lot of things, but we also are traditionalists in relationships because.
So it sounds like you have a lot of long-term tenants and long-term franchisee. That says a lot about your business and the way you're treating people. And so trying to be perfect, if you were to meet your 20-year-old self, what would you tell her? Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. I'm sure listeners will really connect with that. And so, Sandy, what's coming up next for you? How many franchisees do you onboard per month or per year? Right. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, absolutely. You're selective. I like that a lot. And what would you like to leave our audience with? I call them golden nuggets of wisdom. I love it. Absolutely. I agree with you. I love this. Sandy, where can people find you? Thank you so much, Sandy. What a great episode. And I'm sure our listeners will benefit so much from what you shared with us today. Thank you so much. And that wraps up today's episode. I am Anne-Lise Cailliez, and I can't wait to join you again next week. Bonjour everyone, I am Anne-Lise Cailliez and welcome to Parlez-vous CEO, where we ditch the corporate talk and get real about entrepreneurship. Each week, I chat with founders and CEOs who build businesses their way, through the failures, pivots, and breakthroughs. And they bring the fire. Plus, I'll drop some golden nuggets of wisdom from my own entrepreneurial journey. This is your space to grow, learn, and evolve with a true growth mindset. Remember, success isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Now let's kick things off and get this party started.